Our NBA draft scouting report series continues with a look at former San Diego State forward, former Arizona forward, Keshad Johnson. Very versatile, very athletic wing. He's a little bit undersized, about 6'7", but I think a very, very springy player. Riley, give us a breakdown of Keshad's game.
Yeah, Keshad, like you said, 6'6" without shoes, so round up to 6'7" at the combine. 6'11" wingspan, though, 42-inch max vert. Really great measurables aside from the height. And honestly, he's got broad shoulders. Looks like he should be able to continue to add mass to hang with front court players in the league. He really glides off of the floor, very explosive as a roller in particular. Think back to to Arizona's game against Dayton this past
Yep.
tournament when he threw down a windmill dunk in game, which was when the game was still like undecided. You know how confident your athleticism you got to be to do that. But great defensive instincts, really good at guarding ball screens. I want to give a shout out to he's actually a fan of sleepers and just a guy I've connected with on Twitter, Urson Demir, who does a lot of NBA scouting, does or he says per Twitter bio aspiring scout, but does a lot of very in-depth scouting reports and breakdowns. Would highly recommend reading them. And he sort of noted that some of his limitations defensively would be a bit heavy-footed, slower first step. But I think he might not be like on ball demon that he was a lot of times throughout college, but he definitely makes up for it with his ability to blow up a ball screen, the instincts, and yeah, just the overall. I mean, being able to use his length and make the most of it.
Yeah, I he is somebody who wasn't a star in college, but he was a vital piece on both the Arizona team this past season that won the Pac-12, made the second weekend, and then the San Diego State team that made the national championship game 2 years ago. His defense, his athleticism, his rim running. This past season, he really improved his catch and shoot 3-point shooting,
Mm-hmm.
made him integral parts, and it made him easy to see how he would translate, do some plug and play
For
at
sure.
Arizona or really wherever he may end up going in the NBA. Now I think it's easy to project that. If you had to summarize him and his game in one word, what is that word?
He's a bulldog, defensive tone setter. Again, even if he has some limitations that he might have to work through with getting a little more nimble on his feet at the NBA level, I think he's going to bring that buy-in that a coach would want. And honestly, if you know we're looking at him being a second rounder or an undrafted free agent, if you can be put into the game and not mess up and make the most of your time by bringing something, which I think he can with some of his defensive giftings, you'll have a chance to stick. Like he can play. I mean, he'll set the tone on defense, and like you mentioned, the catch and shoot threes, give him a pretty projectable role on offense. Just roll to the hoop, pop out for threes.
Yeah, I went ahead and I just said athlete. Like that sums up his game, and that jumps out every time you watch him. Whether he's catching a lob at the rim, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he's looking down at the rim, or he's sprinting end to end and beating guards down the court. He's skying for a block. You don't know how he got there. His athleticism just stands out so much, and it's the skill set's got to come along. I think from an NBA level, but the athleticism allows him to do a lot and gives him a larger margin for error, as you mentioned. So is he more likely to hit his floor in the NBA or hit his ceiling, whatever that ceiling may end up be?
I'll go with floor. I don't think he's necessarily like a high ceiling type of player. I think he's more so just going to be reliable in his role, not going to hurt you, and will have some splash plays and yeah, create some chaos on defense.
The fact he doesn't have a high ceiling, I don't think makes me think he's more likely to hit his ceiling
Mm-hmm.
than his floor because I have a lot of faith in him being a productive NBA player. I don't think he's going to be a star, but I have a ton of faith that he can be a very, very good piece, right? So for me, it's ceiling. Doesn't mean he's going to be an all star. Doesn't mean he's even going to be like a high end starter for a playoff team. But I think he's going to get closer to his ceiling than his
Mm-hmm.
floor in the NBA. Well, that's got to do with where he lands and where he fits team wise. We have him on our big board projected to go early in the second round. I think he was 37 in our rankings. Let me double check that here. 37 in our rankings. So late second round or early second round, excuse me, of the teams picking in that range. Early second round, you can even go mid second round if you wanted to. What team would be the best fit for him? Where would be the best spot for him to land?
Yeah, I actually went late second round for this one just because I mean I've seen Keshad all over the place in mocks, anywhere from early second to completely
Yeah.
undrafted. So I went with pick 52 of the Warriors, West Coast kid. I would love him as part of like this youthful front court movement they've got going on with TJD and with Jonathan Kaminga. You put him in there and just have another athlete who gets after it defensively. I think he could play off of Kaminga with some of his ability to handle and uh, be enough of a floor spacer. I think you could play him next to TJD as well, thanks to like TJD's passing and just how versatile of a player he is. So
Those three throwing lobs to each other
it would be
would
insane.
just be insane.
Yeah,
Would
it'd
just
be a
be
ton of fun.
insane. I went with the Blazers. And the Blazers picking 34 and 40. I think they'd be smart to use one on Johnson. It's a long-term rebuild there in Portland. We know that. They have really loaded up in the backcourt. They don't need another young guard. You're kind of tied to DeAndre Ayton in the middle, just with his contract and the way things have been for him. They need help on the wing, which is where Portland has really needed help going back to when Nick Batum left. They haven't really found a guy to play the three or the four consistently. I think Johnson goes in there, gives them some experience. I think he's would still be one of their older players, given that he was in college for 5 years. Gives them the athleticism, can be the lob threat rim runner, catch and shoot guy with Scoot Henderson in the backcourt, Anthony Simons. You're not putting the ball in his hands, but his game is probably better when you're not putting the ball in his hands. You can hope he develops a little bit more from a defensive standpoint and becomes your defensive stopper. I think that's in the realm of possibility. And then you have a legitimate 3-and-D guy. And Portland is a team that needs that. I think would be smart to swing for him there. I think would be the best landing spot for him.
I like that pick a lot, especially even speaking off the court, and this will tie into my superlative. But you and I were, we've talked about this before, got to be at Arizona and Duke and Cameron this past year. And talking to Keshad after the game, it was him and Caleb Love, the reporters all around him. You could just tell that Keshad had like this it factor to bring out like that psycho level of play from the rest of his guys. I mean, I think his team literally fed off of how good his defense was, and that's why you saw Arizona rank top 10 defensively this past year. And even points to the year before. I mean, he played in a national championship, played for a 2 seed. Like, he is a winner. And for an organization like the Blazers that has done a lot of losing recently and that has a lot of young pieces, that would be a home run hit to bring into that locker room.
I think so too. Now, his peak year in the NBA, what does that look like from a stat line standpoint? His very best season.
I'm imagining he'll probably only ever give you 8 points, 4 or 5 boards, maybe 33, 34% from three. But I want to say he can compete for a spot on the all defense team.
I think so. Yeah, I think playing time will allow him to get up to like 11, 12 points. Just he'll be on the court. He'll get some threes, throw 5, 6 boards in there. Maybe shoot 35, 38% from three somewhere in that. Well, let's peak here. Let's go 38% from three, and then 2.5 to 3 stocks.
That would be impressive.
That'd be
I think
impressive. It's
he can do
peak
it.
year, peak year,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't expect them that be repeatable. In 5 years, we have options for this. Is he an All NBA player, an All Star, a starter, a bench guy, a G leaguer playing overseas, or is he a podcaster?
I said bench, and I'll give the caveat. I would expect him to spend some time in the G League these first 5 years, but my guy is a dog, and he's going to find his way onto an NBA roster.
Exact same line of thinking. Exact same line of thinking. He's going to have to be in the G League. I think it's going to be a second round pick more than likely. You're going to spend some time in the G League, probably bouncing up and down for a while. But I think about 5 years, he'll be like 28. That's going to be about his peak, and I think that'll he'll be a bench role somewhere. Hopefully, somewhere that's competing for playoff spots and getting meaningful minutes because I think he's a lot of fun to watch. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. We'll end with our superlative. We're giving all of the top 75 prospects we're going over here on the Sabres Media YouTube channel a yearbook like superlative. So, Keshad Johnson is the most likely to do what in this draft class?
Be the Draymond in the Draymond KD viral clip moment where he's like gassing up his teammate. and I'm leaning into the Warriors fit. I'm leaning into what we saw at Arizona, where like again, I Caleb Love was pretty good on defense this past year for Arizona.
Yeah.
I watched Caleb Love for 3 years at UNC. He was very volatile on that end, and a lot of times like fell asleep off ball. I think Keshad Johnson brought that energy out of him, and I could see him doing something very similar to teammates where we get a viral moment like that.
We're on similar wavelengths. We've been around him and his teams enough to know his personality. I think he's the most likely to routinely crash sideline or locker room interviews that other teammates are doing. Like just popping in behind the teammate, like, doing something behind him. I think that's gonna be Keshad.
I like that a lot. A close second was most likely to talk trash on the court and lead a Bible study off of it, because I've definitely heard him give a lot of glory to God in his post game interviews, which I love, and it sounds very genuine. So
Yeah. You turn it on when you're on the court, right? You turn it on. Turn it on. Keshad Johnson, guy we love to watch. Hope to watch him a lot more in the NBA.
The NBA draft is coming up, and I've got something awesome for you. We are partnering with the people at NBA 2K Lab. NBA 2K is the best video game on earth. The people at 2K Lab are making some awesome stuff to make that game even more fun, and they just launched their 2024 NBA Draft Simulator, where you can find the official Sleepers Media big board. We ranked our top 75 players in this draft class. Me, Carter, Brian Ralph, Riley Davis. We did it together, and it is featured on the 2K Lab NBA Draft Simulator. You can take control of any team in the draft, play GM with just one click, and see our entire rankings before these videos even come out. Check out the link in the description of this video to try out the draft sim for yourself, and you can find more mini games at nba2klab.com/NBA-mini-games.